Hello everyone, this is Story Dive, back again, doing a breakdown, analysis, and a bit of a theory video in response to the latest trailer for Disney's new animated feature, Encanto, which will premiere on November 24th, 2021. Encanto literally means charm in Spanish, in this case, charm in the magical sense, as there are a lot of magical elements in this film. In recent years, Disney has been moving away from the European lore that many of its animated fantasy films were based on in the past, and more so toward other cultures outside of Europe. For example, Moana, which was based on Polynesian and Pacific Islander culture, Coco, which was based on Mexican culture, and Raya and the Last Dragon, which was based on Southeast Asian culture. Disney is continuing in this direction with its new film, Encanto, which is set in and based on the culture of Colombia. However, they seem to be doing something a little bit unique with Encanto in comparison to Moana or Coco. While those movies are based on folklore or mythology directly, it seems Encanto is based more so on modern Colombian literature. Although I think it will also feature folklore as well, and I'll get more into that later. Since the teaser trailer, the creators have been hinting pretty heavily that Encanto is based in the magical realism literary style. So in this video, I will quickly cover what magical realism is, the hints and Easter eggs toward it, as well as some other aspects of Colombian culture in the Encanto trailer, and also I will discuss whether or not Encanto really is magical realism or something else. Let's get started. Magical realism, aka magic realism, aka marvelous realism, is a 20th century literary genre or style of fiction most identified with Latin America. While there are many different authors in or even outside of Latin America that have produced work within this genre, the most widely celebrated and really the definitive example of this genre is the 1967 novel 100 Years of Solitude by Colombian author Gabriel García Márquez. García Márquez was not the first magical realist author. In fact, the Cuban author Alejo Carpentier coined the term lo real maravilloso, marvelous realism, before García Márquez's work. However, García Márquez's work, especially 100 Years of Solitude, really defined magical realism as we know it today. García Márquez is also a literary giant within Colombia, so you can see why, when they decided to set their film in Colombia, the creators of Encanto were heavily influenced by the work of García Márquez, and specifically his magical real Colombia, from the novel 100 Years of Solitude. This isn't only my interpretation, actually. The Walt Disney Animated Studios executive director Jennifer Lee stated regarding the film that magical realism sets the musical stage as we travel to Colombia, where a magical family lives in an equally magical home. In the first teaser trailer for the film, they dropped a pretty big hint or Easter egg that this film is at least in part inspired by 100 Years of Solitude specifically. In the teaser, we see the magical home of the Madrigal family, Casa Madrigal, before the shot is obscured by yellow butterflies. Yellow butterflies are one of the more famous literary images associated with Gabriel García Márquez. He used this image in a number of stories, but in 100 Years of Solitude, a group of butterflies follow the character Mauricio Babylonia, and in that context they seem to be a metaphor for forbidden love. Yellow butterflies and also yellow flowers, which also appear in the same book, have become a kind of symbol for García Márquez, or Gabo as he's affectionately nicknamed, so it was no fluke they were included in the trailer for Encanto. This was deliberately sending a message that they are influenced by Gabo for this project. Aside from the yellow butterflies, if you look at what we know of the plot for Encanto so far, there are some other parallels to 100 Years of Solitude. Encanto focuses on a family called the Madrigals, who live in an enchanted house in an enchanted town in the mountains of Colombia. Every child of this house is born with a unique magical ability, a gift, except for one, Mirabel.
You're the only Madrigal kid with no gift. I call it the not special special.
And it seems the story will focus on the unmagical Mirabel's struggle to fit in with her magical family. If you want my theory, I think her family will be the magical and Mirabel will be the realism. That is until she realizes that the real superpower is being a normal person with a lot of heart. Or something like that. I hope it's more complex than that, but that is my guess.
I am just as special as the rest of my family.
While the plot of Encanto is pretty far from the plot of 100 Years of Solitude, there are some clear parallels between the two stories. For example, 100 Years of Solitude also focuses on a family, the Buendia, or literally Good Day family, who also live in a remote Colombian town, in this case the fictional town of Macondo. The Buendia family aren't all gifted with magical powers, as the Madrigal family seems to be. However, they are all odd and unique in their own way, and sometimes display characteristics which are almost like superpowers in some ways. For example, at one point, the patriarch of the family, Jose Arcadio Buendia, after he has gone insane and is tied to a chestnut tree in the family courtyard, somehow learns to alter his weight at will. His wife Ursula, despite being blind, can see clearer than most of the other characters. Their son Jose Arcadio II is described as a tattoo giant. Another character, Rebecca, likes to eat dirt and paint. The character Melquiades sells magical objects like flying carpets that actually fly, and later appears to the Buendias as a spirit. There is a priest character that is said to levitate by means of chocolate, and a later member of the Buendia family is born with a pig's tail. I didn't mention all the strange characters in the novel, but you get the idea. Even if they don't possess superpowers, all of the Buendias are kind of strange in some way, and it seems Encanto is adapting that idea somewhat by giving all the members of the Madrigal family magical or superpowers, except for the main protagonist, Mirabel.
Maybe your gift is being in denial.
The issue with this may be that while it's Disney's attempt at magical realism, it isn't really magical realism in the strictest definition. To define what magical realism is, we should first quickly touch on what it's a reaction to, which is realism. Realism itself was a rejection of romanticism and attempted to depict life in the most real or objective way possible without any artificiality or idealization, usually as a social critique. Magical realism was a reaction to this. Through magical or supernatural elements, magical realism attempts to get at the truth rather than the false reality of realism. Often, magical realist authors will interpret this genre in their own way, however, there are some basic characteristics which define this genre. For example, the story needs to be grounded in reality, or the familiar world. While a fantasy takes place in a fantasy world, magical realism is grounded in the real world. It will often make reference to real locations, real history, and real politics, making us believe we're in the world we know. However, the story will then weave in magical, supernatural elements, but not really give them any explanation, meaning they're treated casually, just like any of the realistic elements of the story. Unreal things happen, and the characters treat it as if it's just normal. Regarding this normality, it seems the characters in the Encanto trailer are abiding by this. To them, these magical characteristics are just normal everyday parts of life. However, what I hope they don't do in this film is explain the powers too much, because I think this actually goes against pure magical realism. In order for it to stay within the genre, it really shouldn't be explained. Another aspect I hope they include with the magical powers of the family is that the magical powers themselves are in some ways a metaphor for the character. This doesn't always happen in magical realism, but often when magical elements occur, they can be interpreted as a representation of the character's emotions or inner being. In regards to magical realism, the Indian-born British author Salman Rushdie made this statement.
The thing that is interesting about the phrase magic realism, people tend only to hear the word magic, but the word realism is as important.
And actually that's what worries me most about the magical realism of Encanto. Just based on the trailer, it seems like they're focusing too much on the magical and not on the real. At some point, I hope they at least make reference to real Colombian politics or history before they take off with the magical elements, but we'll see. Although Encanto seems to be focused more on magical realism than it is on folklore, often magical realism does include folklore. So when looking at the trailer, I wanted to know if there was any specifically Colombian lore referenced by the magical characters, and surprisingly there is, sort of. In the trailer we see one member of the Madrigal family who appears to be a shape-shifting doppelganger. This character imitates the shape of whoever they're talking to, which is a little bit like the folkloric figure known as the Tunda. The character in the trailer appears to be nice, however the Tunda is a malevolent being from the folklore of Colombia and Ecuador, and is thought to imitate the shape of a person's loved one in order to lure them in and eventually devour them. Another of the characters appears to be a kind of goddess of spring. Flowers and flora bloom wherever she goes, which is actually very similar to some figures in European mythology, like the Germanic goddess Ostara, the Greek goddess Persephone, or Aphrodite. However, if you want to get specifically Colombian, she's a little bit like the figure known as La Madre Monte, or the Mother of the Mountain or Forest, who's thought to be a guardian spirit of the Colombian forest and of nature. This character appears to be a little beastmaster and is accompanied by a number of the endemic animals of Colombia. There isn't a figure exactly like this that I could find in Colombian folklore, however, there is a monstrous protector of wildlife called the Boraro. Actually, it's another version of the Brazilian creature called the Curupira, and is thought to kill those who hunt wildlife. Not exactly what this character is doing, but you could see it as a loose interpretation. Aside from the folkloric elements, there are also a number of other interesting cultural aspects seen in this trailer. For example, in this scene, we can see they are celebrating what is likely the Day of Candles, or Day of Little Candles, which is a Colombian holiday that is celebrated on December 7th. The landscape around them appears similar to the Cocora Valley. It has these characteristic high palm trees. The architecture of the house is very similar to the architecture of cities like Cartagena, and of course the trailer features a lot of Colombian-style music.
Mirabel!
Colombia is known as the land of 1,000 rhythms, and is known for musical styles like cumbia, vallenato, and porro, among others. Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing the music for this film, so likely he will take inspiration from those sources. Those are all the details and culture I wanted to talk about in the Encanto trailer. I am not Colombian, so I probably missed some things, and if you notice some things in this trailer that I skipped over in this video, I would love to know what those are in the comments below, as well as what you think about this film. Do you think it will live up to other Walt Disney animated films like Moana or Coco? Are you into the whole magical realism aspect of it? I would love to know your thoughts on this and more in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy my cultural breakdowns of the Naruto and Avatar: The Last Airbender series, linked on the screen. Also, if you enjoyed it, give the video a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until next time.